how's it going? Yay! Good evening to you. And it is a Saturday night, so we do open mic. And if you've never been here before, this is what we do. We come out straight live to you, and we talk about anything and everything around here. And my name is TJ. Saturday night is one of those days that we do open mic. And open mic is you get to ask all the questions. I kind of like lead in a conversation, and out of that, you can get to ask any questions along the way. And if this is your first time watching us, welcome aboard. We like to have new people. And if you've never done any property deal at all, finding a deal and making some money out of it, don't worry. There's so many people. For me, 5 years ago, I was in the same boat as well. But I buy properties all over the show now. My team and I, we are just now owning and managing properties and tenants that are just over 200, and with student accommodation that is just over 350. So it can be done if you are dedicated. You know, I started out with no money at all, so I was empty-handed at that time. I had no money at all, but I wasn't empty-headed. So I started kind of like figuring out how best can I do that. And I think with the support, with a community like M5 Property Addicts, you too can do it. And we then spend out this time on a Saturday night for you to kind of like zone in and lean in and ask those other difficult questions that you might be having at a particular time. But today has been one of those special days because once you are letting me know, do let me know. I'm trusting that you can hear me. Yes, send me some comments there if you can hear me. So I'm trusting that you can. And for the next 1 hour, I am going to be on here. And today we want to talk about alternative strategies that you can invest in, because I think that a lot of people, you know, they're still getting shocked with what can you do, and or there's still a little bit challenge on what can you do. And I think we just know a little bit about student accommodation, and we just know about maybe back rooms, or we just know about normal renting. There's many options, or should I say, there's many strategies. And tonight, we want to unpack all of that. Tonight, we want to unpack all of that. So if you are here, you are watching me from wherever you are watching me, let me know in the comments. Hey, TJ, how's it going? I am here. Let me know where you are watching me from. Without wasting time, today I had the privilege of hanging out with one of my cool bras, and his name is Witness Mdaka. And for some of you, you might have gone out and you've bought his book. And today he kind of like had what is almost like a launch, and he had a business seminar, kind of like. And I urge you guys to go and grab this book. So I'm an author, but he's a cool kid, this guy here. And his name is Witness Mdaka. He is based here in Johannesburg. He's written a book, a great book, that you can literally jump on and you can read it. And I think it's a great book. And his book is called It's More Than Just Money. It's More Than Just Money. And you can literally grab that. And where's my book? Let's see, where's my book? Do I have one of my books here? Well, you can see it right there. I think we need to have a spot next to each other there. Somewhere there. For tonight, right? For tonight, let's have Witness's book up in here. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to try to make sure that my book is just next to his there. He's my boy, and I'm supporting him. So, yeah. So, there you are. If you haven't read it, that's also a good book to read around property. He's been in the game longer than I've been, and he's been doing some great things. Okay, good stuff. Great stuff. Great stuff. Yeah. So what was I saying? I was at his seminar in the conference. They had a conference this morning actually, into the afternoon, and it was a great presentation. Great people there that spoke at that conference. I'm hoping that one of these days he can make that available to people who were not able to attend. But that's what was going on in the afternoon. That kind of like a book launch. And I was there, and people that were there kind of like also get my book for free. Yeah. And if you're also wanting to get my book for free, you can do so as well. All you need to do is to jump on my website, www.tauraijack.com, and you can literally jump on and request your book there for free to your doorstep. Yeah, I'm in it. So good morning to you. Yeah, it is 8 o'clock in the evening in South Africa. So wherever you are, good morning to you. Right, let us start our conversations. Why would you choose, or which strategy would you choose to actually go in, and how do you actually choose that strategy? And tonight, I'm going to cover maybe about 5 or 6 strategies that I know. Some of them I really want to do them, but I haven't started doing them. And some of them I am doing them. And these are strategies in property or in real estate that one can do. And I am wanting to walk through what those strategies are, and how best can you do them, what are the constraints that I see in some of them, and what are some of the wins that you can see. So without wasting time, you all know I do what is called affordable housing. So what is affordable housing? Affordable housing is when you are actually buying, let's say, a block of flats, and you are looking after a certain market. This can be a radius of, let's say, like 2,000 to around about 5,000. That's kind of like seen as the middle class in our communities. And with that, you get to offer accommodation. It could be bachelors, it could be a room, all the way to around about a 2-bed, 3-bed, kind of like in some areas, right? And this is not difficult to do because there isn't really a lot of entry barriers, not unless you are not educated around it. So you need to be educated. I'm always talking about this. If you've never been educated, go through to M5 Property AD, M5propertyvarsity.com. I'll repeat that: www.m5propertyvarsity.com. And that's where you can get some education on how you can actually start in property. But let's come back. Your barrier in terms of getting into property, for a lot of people, it is always about capital. They think that because they don't have capital, so they will not be able to jump into it. Well, I'm here to tell you that if you are empty-handed, doesn't mean that you should get stuck. Because I know that you are not empty-headed, right? So if you are not empty-headed, I know that you can think, you can devise some plans, and you can get to people who've got money. That's what you need to do. And part of the education that you get in M5 Property Varsity is to make sure that we fill your head with options that you can get through to many options to find private money. There is a course actually that I did that's called Private Money. But let's come back to, let's assume that you're one of those people who qualify for, let's say, 500 to a million rand, and you've got some capital on your side. And the most common strategy is affordable accommodation. And this can be affordable accommodation of having a 2-bed, 1-bath, 1-bed, 1-bath, owning a townhouse, sort of like, or having a house and you go back rooms, or you're just renting it out in general, right? That's the most well-known strategy. But is this the best strategy around? I don't know. Certainly I do. We've got a big chunk of our business in there in terms of affordable accommodation. But is this the best strategy? It is definitely not the highest yielding strategy in terms of return. Yeah, it's not. It's not. It's actually, I think, maybe on the bottom side. But why do we do it? It's because people are looking for accommodation, and that's why we do it. And we offer then accommodation to people, isn't it? Right? So that's the pros and that's the con to it. Right? In terms of you in creating some wealth around it, can you create some wealth around it? Oh, yes, you can. How best do you create that wealth? Obviously, by buying more, and you're buying correctly, you can create some great wealth out of it. Right? Can anyone do this? Oh, yes, anyone can do it for as long as you're educated. That's just what we spoke about. And you can do that. Now, that's the one way that you can do it. And if it's making sense, then in the comments to say yay, that is affordable housing, and I've just spoken about some of the barriers that you can meet in going in there, and I've just also spoken about how best you can do that, right? And as I go along with these strategies, I'll jump into the comments. So fire away your comments. I will stop at one point or the other, and you can do it. Over this weekend, I went out to see a very good friend of mine, and I used to work with this guy. His name is Justin Hess, and we worked together for a good odd 5 to 6 years. And he does property in a different manner. So I'm jumping on into another strategy of investing in property, investing in real estate. We've just covered the first one, which is affordable accommodation. And this one here, the one that Justin does, we can just call it the Justin strategy. But well, it's not called the Justin strategy, but I'm just giving it a name. You know me, right? And the Justin strategy, basically how it works is that Justin went on to buy a piece of land at the back of his house. So he had an empty land, and where he stays is kind of like a farming area, kind of like a semi-farming residential area. So behind his house was an empty plot. With that empty plot, he went to buy it. It was empty. And guess what he did on it? So he created an agri-hub, right? So for lack of words, let's just say he created a business on top of the land that he bought. So number one, he bought land. And then number two, he created a business on top of it. Well, is he really then in property, in investing? Oh, yes, he is. He is a property investor, but he just has a different business on top of it. Now, let's zoom in into his business. His business is providing food to his surrounding community. So he grows, I don't know whether it's called growing, but I think it is. He grows fish on his farm, and he also grows vegetables on his farm. But what was fascinating about his strategy for me is that he's got these tunnels. He calls them tunnels. There's about 6 or 8 of them, if I'm not mistaken, on the farm. So just like you would have rooms, or just like you would have a block of flat, and you've got units on your block of flats, he's got what he calls tunnels. And on these tunnels, obviously it costs him money to put the infrastructure, but what he's gone on to do is that he rents each tunnel out to someone else, right? Someone else could be a young farmer who doesn't have the entire amount of money, just like someone else who might not have money to go and buy a house, but they've got money to rent. So in the same circumstance, Justin, he bought the land, he built the infrastructure of the tunnel is functioning, and then there you are, someone else is renting that tunnel from him. He might have spent, let's say, about R1 million on building these tunnels, right? And that other person, he could be renting it for 30,000, right? So it depends on what kind of tunnels we are talking about. But the bottom line is that he can rent it out. The other option that he also has, or he's doing, is that instead of renting it out, he actually works in the tunnel himself. So for argument reason, on a monthly basis, he could be, his operational cost could run about 10,000 Rand, and he gets maybe 30,000 Rand out of it because he's working in it. He's got a business that's working in it. What does he do now with the process of this money? The process of this money, then it comes back to him in the form of the business, and he pays off his bond. When he pays off his bond, what kind of a bond is this? Definitely, it's no longer a bond like a normal bond, like what we know as a residential bond. This is now kind of like a farming loan, right? So you're getting like a farming loan, but in some cases, some banks, they look at different types of land. If there is a house and it's X hectares, so they will still consider it as a house. So you can get away with getting a normal bond, like a 20-year bond. Like companies, the banks like Absa, Standard Bank, they still look at that. But if it is bigger than X hectares, now they're considering it as commercial. So now you need to go into commercial. So it's just about what is it exactly that we are talking about here. But let's jump back now into that type of real estate investing. So why is it really real estate investing? Well, you still own the land there, and together with the infrastructure that is there. That's what real estate is all about. Real estate is about the land and the infrastructure. And is it there? Could you be making money out of it from both ways that Justin does? Yes, he is making money out of it. Is it a higher yield than normal residential? Definitely, you can see with the numbers that I've given you as an example, definitely you can see that the yields are slightly higher. However, some of the barriers that I would see in this option is that I don't think that all of us are kind of like aware that you can actually go buy a farmland and you can rent it out to other people. I don't think that a lot of people are aware, or they think we think that far, right? Because we're thinking that farming is just for farmers, and we never think of it as actually an investment opportunity. So take myself as an example. I can go and buy land today and put these tunnels and I can rent them out. It's still an investment opportunity. But if you see the amount of capital that one needs to put in here, you can see that the amount is quite big. But can you borrow all of it? Chances are you can. Is there good returns? Yes, there is. But how can you just jump on and start building tunnels? Now, that's another barrier there that you might need to be looking at, because not all of us would know what kind of tunnels do we need to be building and things like that. For Justin, if I look at him, he's a fish guy. He's a farming fish guy. That's what he enjoys doing. So he understands everything else that is needed. He actually teaches other people how to do it. So for him, it's a no-brainer. It's actually a strategy as a business, and the underlining factor of it is real estate. The same approach is done with some of the companies that we like buying fast food from, the likes of McDonald's, right? McDonald's is actually, or it has been said over the years, that it is actually a real estate business. And a lot of you are going like, yeah, close your mouth. There might be a fly coming in there. Yes, McDonald's has been mentioned in lots and lots of times to be a real estate business. Now, how do they become a real estate business? It's because in everywhere they are, 99% of it is that they actually own the land, or their preference is to own the land and the shop that there is, and then the business that is on top of it is theirs as well. So they're controlling the business and making money in the business, and they're making money on the land as well. So you kind of like you're your own tenant in your own business, and you obviously know how much money is coming in and out, and that's amazing, because obviously who's the best person to look after your property? It is you, right? And that's what it is. Now, going into other options, the other options that we want to speak about is that I think maybe what I would like to do at this time. So we've spoken about two options, right? So option number one is, or should I say, strategy number one is what we all traditionally know. And now the second strategy that we spoke about is potentially you can be in a farming community. So you can put a business on top of that. And the other one now that I want to speak to, the third option. But before I go on to the third option, I think I'm going to go into another niche, which is the one that you know. And this one here is what we call student accommodation. We do student accommodation, and we all love student accommodation because of the high yields that it brings us. And all of us, we are all fascinated with student accommodation, because it is that just great. The yields are higher, and we like it. And from time to time, what happens is that when we are doing student accommodation, not only are we just making student accommodation, but we're also creating, actually, we're giving up accommodation to the future generation. So you are housing the future generation here. And I think that's a great opportunity to be in. But before we jump on to that, right, I think something else that I want to talk about, especially on the student accommodation, is that it's not for the faint-hearted, because what happens is you're bringing in people in your in your place. And these individuals that you've got are really people that potentially their parents have said, you know what, please, can you go to the university? We don't want you in our house anymore for the next 3-4 years. And you are saying, hey, come in, I'm going to look after you. That's what you're basically saying here. And with that, you are putting in post-teenagers. These guys have just gone into adulthood. And some of the barriers that you might find there is that, especially with a lot of student accommodation is not the traditional stuff. There's lots of moving parts into it. And with that, you need to be an extremely hands-on individual for you to be managing that property. And when you're managing a property like that, right, it basically means that in some cases, you can, like, if you're not managing it properly, you can lose money. That's what happens. You can lose money. It is very possible for you to lose money onto a property like that. Right. Now, I want to speak onto, is it a good opportunity for students accommodation? It is. It is. Students accommodation, it is very good. There's higher yields. Is it better than normal rental? Well, the normal tenanting, like I did say earlier on, is on the bottom, right? It's like on the bottom. But again, it depends really on how did you buy, and that's what I want to actually dive into a little bit later on. How do you buy? Because anything or any strategy is really a good deal depending on how much actually you've spent on the deal. So the numbers will make the deal. What else makes the deal? So it's the numbers. Location also makes the deal. So obviously, if the location is in a great place, then there you are. It's going to be a good deal. Why would location be of importance? Let's speak about the 3 strategies that we spoke about. Students accommodation. Location needs to be within a 3-kilometer radius of the university, or should I say the place of learning. If I look at the farming one, should you be far away from where you are selling your product? So let's assume the Justin model. Justin model is that he is selling what they call farm fresh veggies for the it's a fresh produce. So for that reason, he mustn't be too far away for the community where he's delivering to. So for Justin, he is in the Midrand area, and he only services the Midrand spas and things like that. And for that reason, right? For that reason, you can then stipulate to actually see that, look, from his side of the fence, he's actually doing great because he's not traveling like 100 kilometers, 20 kilometers. He is not traveling that much. And that's what I really like about that. And I'm just going to jump into another one, which is the first one that we spoke about. And if you look at affordable housing, why would someone want to move into your place, right? They would want to move into your place because they want you to stay in it. And if they want, you as the tenant, to stay in it. But for instance, if you look at affordable accommodation, people that are looking at affordable accommodation, they're really looking at it from a perspective of, are we living close to amenities or the amenities? And I'm going to pause here and just quickly jump into the comments, and let's see what the comments are saying. But I'm hoping that what I'm saying here is kind of like making sense for now. Nomalanga says, I'm listening. Great. Welcome aboard. Spartan says, would be nice to address strategies for those who have no credit score but have cash to buy. Okay? You don't have a credit score and you've got cash. You've got liquid cash on you. What would be the best way to go? Anything would be, you got cash, right? If you got 4 million rand sitting on your backside, what can you jump into, right? You can literally jump into anything. It just depends on what kind of returns now you're looking into. Can you do into student accommodation? Yes. If you're investing in student accommodation, generally people who have cash, so they are rich in cash, but not rich on time, so maybe they might not want to go into that one. Even the farming one also might be good as well, because you could get a farmer who is a qualified farmer to run the farm, and you are outlaying the cash, so there's quite a bit that you can do there. Yana says, hey, Uncle TJ, how's it going? How's it going? Valley. I just closed my first deal. Whoop, 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 whoop. There we go. There we go. Celebration. I just closed my first deal under the company after signing personal surety. All thanks to you. No, 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 no. I am not the guy to thank here. You are the guy to thank, because I did my part, which was coming through on this Saturday evening, and all my other videos and all the learnings. I know Veli is one of my students in M5 Varsity, and with that, I did my part, right? As the teacher, as someone who's doing it, I did my part, but you took action, and way to go, Veli. Big up to you. I wish I could get this every week on here. But he's got a question here. Veli says, my question is, can I do another deal, or should I wait for this one to register? Dude, there's nothing to wait for. Uh, Keep on killing them deals, man. Keep on killing them deals. But it really depends on whether the next deal that you're looking at, do you have the capacity? So there's a number of things there without actually just saying yes. If I've got the capacity, hey, there's a time when I was registering a property almost every other week, and I would go to my attorney's office, and I would just like, can you line them up? And then I just sign once, right? So yes, you can. That's my thinking. Ohore says, TJ, your sound is a bit off. Ooh, okay. Not good to hear there. Rory saying, your sound is too low. Oof, okay. I'm going to pause a little bit so that maybe let me get some headphones on. Let's see. Okay. Let's get some headphones on. I got some headphones on here, and I'm going to pause for give me literally 30 seconds so that I can get my headphones on, because I definitely want you to hear everything else that I'm talking about. And this is going to be a commercial break. Ne? Let's just call it a commercial break, but I'm coming back just now. Hey, I'm back. I'm back. Yeah. Okay, these things do happen. Let's see what's the effects going to be on here. I've got some headphones now. Let's connect them there. Right. Uh, Okay, I'm back now. Can you guys hear something? No audio. Okay, how about now? Can you guys hear me? Okay, I'm trusting that you can hear me now. So give me some thumbs up if you can hear me. 1, 2, testing. 1, 2, testing. Yes, we can hear you. Okay, good, awesome stuff. Let's continue then. Right. So I was now jumping on. I actually had started talking about some of the other strategies. But here's the thing, right? So what we have covered student accommodation, we've covered a little bit of farming. And really farming, I just don't want you guys to take it as farming. Like I did say, it can be like McDonald's model, right? We're calling this the Justin model. But really, it's about having a business on top of a infrastructure that you own. So let me give you another example. Another example of this is that I've got a very good friend uh, who's who's a doctor, right? And the first thing that he did, instead of buying a house, he went on to buy his what do you call it? He went on to buy um, a consulting room, or should I say a practice. So he bought a house, and on that house, he was staying right at the back, and in the front, he made it look like consulting rooms and things like that. So he kind of like works from home long before COVID came in, right? Now, having said that, the the thing is that he owns the house, and on top of the house sits his business, and which is the same thing with the farming model that we're talking about, which is the same thing with the McDonald's thing, right? So what else can you do which is very similar to that, right? There's quite a lot of other businesses that you can do. Actually, student accommodation, in my view, it can also be something like that. It is a business on top of another business. So you're investing on the property on the bottom, right? But actually on top, you actually have another business there. Makes sense, right? Okay, good stuff. So let's jump onto another strategy, right? And that strategy here that I want to speak about is very similar to what we're talking about now. It is around buying real estate or buying a piece of land and create a hospital, right? Create a hospital. What do I mean by that? So a lot of us, we like thinking, we were just raised thinking that, like if the hospital is down the road, right? Where I stay, we've got Mediclinic, we've got Netcare, we've got, there's a lot of these small medical centers around me. Some of them are on a strip mall, some of them are like on a house that is now been kind of like developed into like a center, sort of like so, or 3, 4, 5 stands that have been merged together. They used to be residential, and now they've been all merged together. Can anyone do that? The question there really is not about anyone can do that. Potentially, you need to be in the medical field for you to actually see those kind of opportunities. Because if you're just buying a piece of land or you're buying property, and then all of a sudden you are seeing an opportunity and you are wanting to make that place a hospital, what kind of a hospital? Is it a day clinic? Or what is it, right? So I got a friend of mine whose wife is a doctor. For him, he's able to see the opportunity because the wife wants to branch out and on her own consulting place, on her own practice. I think they call it a practice, right? So for that reason, he's in property. So he tells the wife, like, "Hey, we can do this, but this is how we can do that." So with that, it basically means that you can buy that property here, and with that, you can order on the consulting rooms, and maybe it can grow into a mini practice. Maybe it can even grow up to be a proper hospital. I actually know of someone who actually does development 100% on hospital developments, right? So they buy a big size of land in a community that is, obviously we know that, for the government to build hospitals in a particular place, the government's a little bit slower in terms of that. So what do? They go in and cover the gap where the government hasn't placed in a hospital. And if you're going into the council, if you go into the council, you can even ask the council, where is the town going? They call it town planning. There's a department that's called town planning. So you can actually get to see where the town is going 5 years, 10 years to come. And there is pockets that have been reserved for education, for retail, what. And with that, you can already start planning and say, oh, can I buy that piece of land? Can I buy this piece of land? That information is readily available for many, but we just don't know it, right? We're far away from it in terms of thinking, but this information is available, right? Now, with that, obviously, one needs to have some money, and I want to go on to Spartan. I'm like, Spartan, dude, like for instance, look at I'm Johannesburg based, so there's an area called Lanseria Airport, and Lanseria Airport. Actually, there's two places that I want to mention today. There's Lanseria, and there's another place in Pretoria, also being developed. I've forgotten the name. If you guys know about the name, drop it in there in the comments. Literally, the president, they call them mega cities, right? So it's these neighborhoods that are coming up, and they go on to the big development. So the land is just being developed, but the government is putting in services in place, and they've planned on what it is, but a lot of the land will still be like maybe owned by a few people that are coming, that are still with the original landowners. You can literally go and buy. Like right now, in Lanseria, I knew of that project like 10 years ago, but that project hasn't fruition. But you can see with the infrastructure, the roads are they're coming up strong. And you can even see some of the garages that are coming up there. You can see that there's an amount of traffic now in that area. So with that, you can literally go and buy a couple of farms maybe within that area, knowing where the town is going, and you can hold on to that and wait for developments to kick in 5, 10 years later, and you can develop yourself, right? Or without even developing yourself, you can just sell it. And that's why flipping for other people, isn't it? Right? So that's another strategy there. I want to jump on to the next strategy, and this strategy here is, I think, for many people enjoy the strategy, especially with people that I know who are in that kind of line of business. The strategy of, I'm just trying to cover up strategies that are within the main strategy of buy to let. So because lots of people think that buy to let is a strategy, but there's many other strategies in the buy to let. So when you're buying and holding a property, that's what I'm talking about. Now, this strategy, I think it is the most lucrative, in my view. It is the most lucrative strategy that you can have. That's number one. It is the most rewarding in terms of emotional banking that you can also have. And this is the strategy of education. So education, what do I mean by that? There is a huge gap in our system, in the way that schools are developed, in the way that communities are growing. So they're not going hand in hand. It's just the same as hospitals and things like that. So can you find your niche in terms of education? Where does education start from? It starts from preschool, right? Now, if it's starting from preschool, let's jump into where do these preschools emanate from? In our neighborhoods, right? Can you go into a township and buy a property for 400,000 or 500,000 and get the necessary rights for it to be a preschool? Yes, you can. Can you buy a property in semi-suburban areas You can buy a 2,000 square house in a Kempton Park, in a Boxburg, in Florida. Doesn't really matter here, but I'm just talking about these big houses in the Pretoria side. I've seen quite a lot of them. I've even seen crashes being sold. So you can buy, like I'm busy now buying a crash. Right now, I'm busy buying a crash. I'm not going to keep it as a crash though. I'm going to turn it into a student accommodation because for me, that's where the door is. But I'm only turning it into a student accommodation because I don't have anyone on my team who is a preschool educationist. That's the only reason why I'm doing it, why I'm converting it into students. But if I had someone, and this is where I am going, so I've spoken about some of the strategies that I do. You guys know them. So if I've got a strategy, one of my strategies that I actually want to do is to owning an M5 that has an education side of the business, right? So can I have a house, and that house we have turned it into a crash, right? Guys, I don't know how many people are having sex. Maybe they're having sex right now, but there is so many people that are giving birth. That's the thing, right? How many people are getting married? There's so many of them. How many people are having babies? There's so many of them. All of those babies need to go to a creche somewhere. So the demand is it's like there. You know what I mean? The demand is always going to be there for education. But obviously the brand that you're going to put on top of it now is very, very important, right? And how you're going to be managing this creche as well, right? It's a reality. Now I want to jump on to something else there. You say, okay, fine, you make it a creche. So do you go on to own a school? Yes. I mean, like a primary school. Yes. I've actually my firstborn. At some point, we were moving houses, and he was in between schools, and he actually attended like a Montessori, and they were in two separate stands. So they actually had bought two separate stands, and then the school grounds was somewhere else. But if I looked at it, these were old houses, old big houses, and they just convert the rooms to be classes. So can you partner up with someone else who understands the education and start your own school? It is very, very possible, right? It's very, very possible. Okay. I think the point that I'm trying to make is that you can be able, like from a kindergarten, like I've never really seen like a preschool that's like not in a house. I haven't. I've always seen it in a house or in a community. So that's tick. We can do that. In school, maybe the facilities could be needed a little bit more. I interviewed a couple of, when was it? I think it was sometime winter this year. I interviewed a lady doctor on this channel here, and she owns schools. And she was talking about, what is her name again? I can't remember her name, but if you know her name, tell me there in the comments. And she actually owns schools. And she owns schools in Pretoria. She now has schools in Cape Town. And again, they start within the community. So it can be done, right? It's not these big schools that we want with 4,000 squares. It's not those type of schools, right? Now, the other strategy that I want to jump into before I go on into the comments is that it is what they call, you can actually also do, and this is a very interesting one. I do a little bit of it, but not as hard as I would like to. So you can literally buy a couple of shops and rent them out as retail shops, right? So some of the buildings that I buy, they've got accommodation on top, units on top, and at the bottom they've got rental space, retail space. So I rent them out to all sorts of people, like barber shops, like a mini supermarket, a butcher, a what do you call that one? Not a tavern, but a bottle store. Bottle store, yeah, that's what I meant to say. So it can be like a bottle store, right? So is it also another real estate business to own a shop and you put a bottle store on top of it? It is. Can you see that, from there's a wide array of these strategies or options that you have in terms of investing under the umbrella of buy to let. There's quite a lot that you can do, right? So speaking of the retail space, this is my fascination about retail space. Anything that is commercial based, I think a lot of people, they don't know this one, is that I also didn't know. And by the time I started actually knowing this, it was only when I started owning retail space to rent out. So in commercial, whenever you have a commercial place and you're renting it out, you can actually rent it out as a white box. So they call it a white box. What is a white box? White box is you buy this place and you just paint it somehow white if you want, right? Paint it all white and you rent it to the next person. They are going to pay for maintenance. Yeah? Because you might be renting it out to McDonald's, right? So, like, you don't know how to paint the colors for McDonald's. It's a white box. So you give them out like that. So you don't pay for maintenance as the landlord. The tenant pays for maintenance. But obviously you need to check what has been checked. And you don't pay for rates and taxes. They do, the tenant. So if there is no maintenance and there is no rates and taxes to be paid, normally those are the landlord costs, isn't over and above. So you're just getting paid. You're just getting paid. Right? You have no any other costs. You have no any other expense besides maybe your management expenses. But over and above that, you don't have. And I love commercial properties for that. The other thing that I want to mention about the commercial properties is that you can also, in the same breath, there's other properties that you can do instead of commercial, you can do industrial, right? That's kind of like big boy stuff. Industrial. I have seen small industrial places for sale for $1 million, $1.5 million, and all you need to do again, white box, right? You put a white box around it, right? And out of it, you then rent it out to someone else who's going to be doing manufacturing of what, and you're literally not involved, okay? But obviously, the entry barrier there is always kind of like difficult because you're now on the commercial side where they don't have a 20-year mortgage. It's generally around about 5 to 10 years. The most that I've really seen is 10 years. So you can see there, not many of us will be able to jump in there and just be like, yeah, I can do it. So Spartan, that's another area that you can jump into because there's a barrier to entry there because you need heavy cash up front, right? Make sense? Makes sense. I'm gonna jump into the comments in here. Let's see someone else put in some comments. Remember, this is your show. It's an open mic on a Saturday. So my sound is good now. And Rosinger asked a question here. Do you think it is better to specialize in one strategy as opposed to try and do many, like flipping, multi-let, student accommodation, etc., etc.? I do think that it is important for you to specialize. Why do I say that? It's because when you're starting to specialize, you start creating some efficiency within your processes. What do I mean by that? If you own a one bed, one bath here, and next year you buy another 2 bed, 1 bath, and all of a sudden you're like, now I'm going to be doing flips, and now you're focusing on flips. What it basically means is that you only have 2 years of experience of managing properties. And 2 years of managing properties is not really good experience for you to start creating some efficiency around it. So what do I mean by efficiency, right? When you own a process, remember property managing is actually a process. When you have a process for anything in life, um, there is a certain way in which you can now create some efficiency around it. So how can I do it better? How can I squeeze some more money out of it, right? So you don't get to receive more money, or should I say to make more money, without implementing strategies that will create some efficiency around it. So I would say, uh, at minimum, stick with the strategy for around about 4 or 5 years. Those are good cycles. You have seen, because remember, a property is different in December, it's different in June, it's different. And you want to understand those trends so that you can be able to create your own efficiencies around it, right? Because bearing in mind, what I might share with you could be very different when you are investing in a particular area that I've never invested in before. So for that reason, I would say a 5 to 6 year gap before you jump on into another strategy is a good one. However, you might be in a position like me, right? And that position is that you have a partner, right? So for instance, I generally focus on two things in our business, and that is fundraising money and affordable housing, and then in creating the deals, right? However, I've got a partner, Reta, and she focuses on student accommodation with alongside me, right? So she is in the detail of it, whilst I am in the detail of what I spoke about. You see, so with that, I am able to do two strategies almost at the same time. But who is in the detail of it? Because the detail is how you create your efficiency. I'm hoping that makes sense, right? Ohole says, I'd like to have rent to rent since I don't want any debt at the moment, even if it's my company. Oh, yeah, rent to rent is good. So that's another strategy as well that you can implement. I have implemented it before, especially in the student accommodation space. I didn't like it at first. Reta convinced me into it, but I was like, I don't own anything. So rent to rent, it basically means that I'm losing out on appreciation and all of those other nice things that comes with property. But Ohole says it nicely. She's not considering to have any debt at the moment, but she wants to get her feet wet. So for that reason, what is the best way? Go and rent on the place and rent it out. So for instance, I spoke about service accommodation earlier on. The one thing I like about service accommodation is the entry level, the barrier to the entry level is not as high, because what you can do is you can literally go and rent out a 2-bed, 1-bath, right? And you could be paying 4,000 Rand on it, but you can maybe put in furniture of, let's say, 60,000 in it, right? Rented, by the way, or even bought, doesn't matter. And you now do Airbnb on the same property. All right? And when you're doing Airbnb, you could be maybe charging 400 Rand a day on the same property. So is that good returns? It is. Very good returns. Right? So rent to rent gets you to understand it. And if it's not for you, you're like, I'm out of here. This thing here, it ain't working for me. But you're not heavily invested. So Ohole, pick up to you there. Yes, rent to rent, it can work out for you. David says, yes, Houghton is coming up to Lanseria via 4 ways. Yes, we all know of those plans. So yes, if you've got some money, right now could be a good opportunity to be buying some of the land there, because some of those people, they might even know that Houghton is coming there, right? So they don't even know the value of their land at the moment, right? So that's the other opportunity. And that's the other thing as well. So David, thanks on that one. So for instance, let's look at it. Blake Zamande, he's the Minister of Health, not health, of education, right? And when did he announce? I think it was during lockdown, somewhere like a heavy lockdown. He announced a few places where they're going to put up new student accommodation, right? Not student accommodation, new universities. I think there were like 3 or 4 of them, right? And my view was like, guys, in this area or in those areas, people don't even know what student accommodation is all about, right? So in today's world, we can go in that area and start putting in offers. What's your risk? You don't know when the government is going to implement those universities. So you might buy and then the project becomes a flop. Yeah, it's very possible, right? I mean, we're all in South Africa and we're seeing all the inquiries happening. So yes, the intention was there to put that project, a university there, but the money went somewhere else. So that's your risk, right? That's the risk. Or do you wait for the project to start off and start being built and you start buying? Again, that's another risk because it might not finish up. But do you wait and then the university gets finished 100%? Well, you're too late. Because everyone now in that area now knows that there is students coming. And people start thinking also, sharp, right? There you are. Right. Another question here. Low. Right. Rorisinger says, laugh out loud, that's so wrong, TJ. How many people are having, sorry. Okay. Right. David, laugh out loud there. Rorisinger says, makes sense, thanks. Okay, good. And another question or comment that's coming through from Rorisinger here. If you want to invest in different provinces far from you, are real estate agents your only way to find deals? Right, that's a very good question. Not necessarily so. So I generally hang out with people that are called sourcing agents or also estate agents. But sometimes, like I'll give you an example. There's a guy called Yahoo Kropler. He owns the company Prosperious something. I've forgotten his company name. But I really like Yahoo Kropler. And Yahoo, in one of the episodes that I did with him back in the days, and you can check it out when I did an interview with a guy called Yako Kropler. And in there, he says to me at that time, he used to stay in Bloemfontein, but he knew that he was coming to stay in Johannesburg, that he wanted to do. So over the weekends, he would actually drive into an area, started establishing his relationships and things like that, started seeing opportunities, things like that, and then eventually he started buying and things like that. So yes, you can establish your estate agents network, but not necessarily so. There's other people as well that you can jump onto. And the question that you then ask is there, what other ways can one implement to find good deals? Right. The other way is, besides estate agent, is that you can drive the area yourself. Right? You can literally come through into the area, drive around, jump onto Lightstone, pull that Lightstone. On the Lightstone report, it tells you who the owners is. It also tells you the name or their contact details. So you're driving around, you see that place that you like there, you're like, oh, okay, fine, I like it. You download the report, you give them a call. Hi, how's it going? My name is Rory Singh, and I'd like to buy your house. Yeah, that's called cold calling, right? Not a lot of people do it. I used to do it back in the days. I still have a list of properties that I want to get to, but that's a little bit difficult. Or you can get acquainted with lawyers in that area, right? It's also another good way. Or you can find networks in that area, networking events, and you can jump on and start socializing with people in there. Tell them this is what you do. You're looking for property to invest in. I really like sourcing agents because estate agent, they don't really work for me. They're working for the seller, but a sourcing agent is really working for me. But what if I get an estate agent who's a sourcing agent? That's my happy place normally. Yeah. All right, cool. It is 9 o'clock, ladies and gentlemen. It's been great hanging out with you. I'm trusting that this has been of good value to you. I apologize for the sound, but I think it was good that we took a break also. And if there is further questions, drop me in there in the comments, and we'll jump into it. And I'm glad that today we have had conversations around different strategies in the buy-to-let space. But there's like lots and lots of them that we haven't even touched on. For instance, I want to give you guys an example. For instance, at the moment where we are in the economy right now, we having a lot, and when I say a lot, right, a lot of deliveries due to COVID coming through. So my question that I'm going to leave you guys, if you had an opportunity, right, and maybe this is a Spartan conversation, if you have an opportunity to build a warehouse, is this not a good opportune time to be building or to be buying such kind of things? Because take a lot, I'm sure they are growing in leaps and bounds, right? Because everyone is buying online, right? That's number one. But that industry is kind of like growing, the ones that, for delivery services. So now building different hubs, that's going to be a good business. I don't know. I'm just asking, like what you guys think, and we can have that conversation there in the comments. But anyways, good night, guys, and we'll chat again later. And some of those other videos that I recommended, so you can quickly jump on and you can listen to those. But otherwise, for me, it is good night. We'll chat later.